It's time for another edition of Live from the Heartland. I'm Michael James, and this one is for the week of May 11th, 2024, and we are recording it on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. We have a number of guests today, so I'm going to keep my comments a bit short. We're going to have Rinda West of Jobs with Justice and the Workers' Rights Board, along with Jackie Guataquira, who is an organizer with the Debt Collective. And then an old friend, Michael O'Toole, who's over in France, is going to give us a little report on things going on there, as well as some labor information from the Old Town School of Folk Music. And then we're going to have Koya Paz, who's going to tell us a little bit about Hazel Johnson and Mothering the Movement play that the Free Street Theater Youth Ensemble has been putting on. On a sad note, I want to acknowledge the passing of a couple of friends. Barry Romo was a longtime organizer with the Vietnam Veterans Against the War. He is a veteran of the war in Vietnam. Later, he went to Hanoi. He was just on the case all the time, political dude, a good organizer. And then a friend named Lori Serkin, who our friend Michael Deutsch describes as a beautiful, caring, and loving person. He was a member of Rising Up Angry and loved by a lot of people. He passed. Two people we've already talked about and some memorials coming up is this Saturday. There's a memorial at the Friendship Baptist Church, 5200 West Jackson Boulevard, for Lou Kreinberg, a longtime Chicago organizer, and that's from 3 to 5. And just a reminder, there will be a citywide memorial for Reverend Walter Slim Coleman, Thursday, May 30th, 6 to 8, Operation Push, 930 East 50th. Good things. Good things going on is across the country, and certainly here in Chicago as students are protesting the situation in Gaza. University of Chicago camp got broken up this morning. That would be Tuesday the 7th. Other places where there are real activity going on are DePaul, Northwestern, and I'm sure a few others. One of the other good things I saw was that the Biden administration last week put a hold on shipment of U.S.-made ammunition to Israel. I think that came from two Israeli officials as told to Axios. But on a negative note, Israel has just begun its incursion into Rafah. Okay, we've got a lot of guests. We've got a lot to cover, so we're going to take a short musical break, and we'll be right back with Live from the Heartland for the week of May 11th. It's time for our first set of interviews today, and we have two guests. We have an old friend, Rinda West, and we have Jackie Guataquira. And I've known Rinda for a long time. We're both members of Rising Up Angry. She was a longtime professor of English, I believe, at Oakton Community College, and she has a landscaping and design business, and she's very much active with the Workers' Rights Board and with Jobs for Justice. And Jackie is a Chicago-based artist, youth educator, organizer with the Debt Collective. And as people who listen regularly or view us regularly know, we've been talking about a labor film series that our friend Peter Kuttner is involved with. And usually he's been here with us, and he's got Rinda talking about the film today. And so let's start off with this film. I think the film is called You Are Not Alone. Take it away, Rinda.
Okay, I'm actually going to pass this on to Jackie because she is from the Debt Collective and the film is by the Debt Collective. And
Okay.
if I'll just preface it by saying that Jackson Potter at CTU suggested that the Workers' Rights Board co-sponsor these films with the Debt Collective because we have been doing the film series. And once Jackie's told you about the films, I'll tell you about the film series.
Okay, good. Well, take it away, Jackie.
Hi, thanks for having me. So the film is called You Are Not Alone, kind of a play on words to say that we are not tied to this debt that we have that we take out in order to go into higher education, as well as that when we have power in numbers, we can kind of push back against all of this to really fight for debt abolition across the board. With this film in particular, it is by filmmaker Astra Taylor. She is one of the co-founders of the Debt Collective, and the film centers kind of scholars, community members, people who were in the debt strike back in 2015 against like loans that they had taken out for a for-profit college. So in the film itself, it's just kind of like conversations between academics, scholars, former students, people who've like worked in the higher ed industry, and just like analyzing, navigating, and opening up about the hardship that that entailed, and then imagining like how we can move forward in like a different way, because it doesn't need to be this.
Well,
Some
Jackie,
context
tell
for
us a little bit more about the debt strike. And then how about giving us a little more information on the debt collective?
Yeah. So for the debt strike, that was back in 2015. The debt collective originally came out of the Occupy Wall Street movement in 2012. And there were several people who were in debt from like a for-profit school. And they all went on strike to strike against these tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They went into debt from kind of like a predatory institution, and they actually did end up winning, and they got their debt abolished, which is a great feat. Of course, this is, I think, almost 10 years ago at this point, and we're still in the fight for complete debt abolition. And one of the strongest kind of campaigns that we're working on now is for student loan debt abolition. So with the debt collective, our thing is that we're a debtors union fighting to cancel debts and defend millions of households. So while the strongest campaign at the moment is student loan debt, we also focus on medical debt, housing debt, carceral debt, and beyond that, fighting for free education, and kind of in that vein of things. The debt collective has like national committees and local branches. So I'm based in Chicago, but we have like Philadelphia, Seattle, New York, Indianapolis. Those are some of the stronger organizing branches at the moment, because their representatives haven't signed on to the letter that was urging Congress to cancel student loan debt. So those branches have been very active. And then while I'm here in Chicago, I wanted to take advantage of living in this city that has like a strong kind of organizing history with like labor rights and with CTU and all of that. So that's a little bit more about the debt collective, what it means that like we're a union because we're using our collective power to fight for better conditions and a more equitable society. So like education, healthcare, housing, and beyond that, anti-racist economic policies and much more.
Let me ask you just briefly, what's your take on President Biden and his various attempts to reduce debt, student debt? Is that viewed as a positive thing in his favor by the debt collective, or are there too many other issues to have you be enthused about him?
Yeah, well, that's something that we've been kind of fighting for a while now. Before he was in office and currently, the debt collective has been pushing him to, like, use his power, that he fully has the power to cancel all student loan debt today. Like with a flick of a pen, he could cancel all the student loan debt today, right now. And he hasn't. So we're calling on him to use that power to liberate millions of us from the ballooning student debt that we're all kind of being crushed under. And we're disappointed with what his candidacy and all of that has looked like so far, his time in office. There have been some wins, which is great. Like, always happy for people who get their debt like abolished and all of that. But it needs to be more. There's still trillions of dollars of student loan debt had across the United States. And myself, I'm a little bit over $30,000 in debt from graduate school, which is something that we like to kind of speak openly about, because there's a lot of shame around like how much debt you're in, even speaking about it. So being involved with the debt collective has helped me open up, be like, no, like this is actually really normal. Unfortunately, like you're not alone. And I am actively on debt strike, so I am not in repayment of my student loans because I refuse to give any more money to the government to be used not towards education and toward funding war and genocide right now. And this is something that the debt collective is actively fighting against and taking a clear stance that we demand him to use his executive powers to cancel all student debt. So
Well,
at the moment, yeah.
I'm glad I asked that one. And I just want to go on record. I think that education should be free. And
We agree.
because time gets tight, I'm going to switch over to Rinda. And Rinda, why don't you do a couple of things? Tell us a little bit about first the film and how people can see it. And then let's talk a little bit about some of your other stuff with Workers' Rights Board and Jobs with Justice.
Okay, thank you. The film is part of a series that is being put on by the Workers' Rights Board. So I will get to that shortly. But, you know, higher education was free in this country in many places until Reagan. And right now, higher education is a hot mess because state legislatures are not funding in the state institutions of higher education. The colleges and universities are hiring adjunct faculty. The full-time faculty are thinning out because they're not getting hired and they're being asked to do more and more. So what the debt collective is asking for is not, sadly, a revolution. It's just a return to a condition in which the country valued education. There are 3 films that we're drawing from for this screening. One is You Are Not Alone, which is going to be partially viewed, not the whole thing. And then there are 2 others, which are on the flyer, that are very short, but focus more on kindergarten to grade 12 teachers, because You Are Not Alone doesn't particularly highlight the constituency of CTU. And since this is in the CTU facility, we wanted to make sure that we were talking about the kinds of loan burdens that teachers face, and also how teachers address students about college choices that they're making. How can teachers help their kids, their high school kids, to understand the consequences of the decisions that they're making? Teachers are particularly burdened by loan, I think, because teaching is a vocation. It's not like, oh, go study computers and then you can work for a mindless corporation. It's study something that's important so that you can carry it on, pass it on to another generation. And yet they still have this enormous burden of debt. So we're screening 1 4-minute film, 1 very brief additional film, and You Are Not Alone. And our process is that someone introduces the films, we show the films, and then we get a couple of discussants who come in to talk about their responses to the films and their responses to the issues that are on the table. And we will have people talking both about CTU specifically and debt and indebtedness in general. And then we open it up to the floor. And that's really the power of the event, is we open it to the floor and everybody who comes can tell their story. So we get our own lived version of You Are Not Alone. And we get people having conversations. And we often get conversations across industries, which is really nice because it helps to build the power of working people.
I was just going to ask you before I forget, what is the date of the showing and what is the location of the CTU headquarters?
Well, it's on the flyer. The date is May 16th, which is possibly a week from Thursday.
Yeah.
And CTU, well, the address is on the flyer, but Yeah, so you can take a look at it and add it in if you want, or I can go right here now. Okay, 1901 West Carroll Avenue. So
Okay.
it's just between Ashland and Damon, and it's a little bit north of so the sort of downtown area, but that's where it is.
Let me ask you, what has been the reaction to the film series in general? We've had someone on monthly now talking about the various films, and I'm wondering how it's going.
Well, I have to say that the film on the UAW was enormously interesting and exciting, and we had a good crowd and we had a lot of good conversation. And the last film that we did, The Hand That Feeds, we had some really powerful people also sharing their experiences as immigrant workers and organizing immigrant workers. So, for my money, the value of the series is at least as important in the conversation as it is in what people learn from the films.
How many more films will there be after this one?
We have one in June, and then we're going to take the summer off, and then we'll start again in September. And I think what we're doing in June is a commemoration of the Pullman strike. But there's lots of labor films, and that gets us into why are we doing this series? And we're doing this series in part because we feel like often working people are separated from one another. It's not that they're necessarily divided, although there obviously are divisions. There's not the kinds of conversations that we think people need to have. So we're doing both a kind of labor history, political education, and an opportunity for people to get together and connect across industries. Because if we're ever going to make any changes in this country, we have to do that. I mean, we can't do it by having little separate camps everywhere. We have to be in this together, in the struggle together. So what we do is we send out information about each film showing to all the member organizations of Jobs with Justice. Everybody on the Workers' Rights Board sends the information out to everybody we know. And we do our best to do outreach so that we get a varied audience. And the Workers' Rights Board's history has not been providing education. It's really been providing support for striking workers. So among the things that we do, we hold hearings where members of an organization or an industry will tell their stories. And then that's followed by discussion from the floor. And we've had some very, very successful ones. We had one actually during COVID for gig workers, and a number of people working in different gig outfits, got to connect with each other and build some power, I think, from speaking with each other. We also send delegations to places. We sent a delegation one time to WTTW because they were firing folks, and we just wanted to go in and talk to the personnel director and tell them that they shouldn't do that. So the hearings have been the meat and potatoes of what we do over the years that I've been chairing it, which is about 10 or 15 years, who can remember. But our sense of our mission is both to provide information and experiences and to bring people together.
Now, is the Workers' Right Board, it's not just in Chicago, it's further along. I mean, it's more national.
It is national, yes.
And it's like, I liked it said that the Workers' Rights Board is the moral voice of the community when labor laws fall short. Any want to enhance that at all?
Well, one of the things that's important to us, especially when people are in a struggle, is bringing their story to the community so that their neighbors, their customers, or their clientele or whatever understand what's going on with them, what their working conditions are. We also have had a number of struggles where people's working conditions are so unsafe that they're willing to walk out rather than endure the heat, for example. Warehouse Workers for Justice does a lot of work around environmental stuff because at those warehouse distribution areas, there's just so many vehicles and such nasty pollution and that kind of stuff.
Well, while we got a few more minutes, do either of you want to throw in some thoughts on your view of what's going on, or more information about the struggle of working people and people who are in need of support from each other?
Do you want to, Jackie?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I want to just kind of plug is how to get involved with the Debt Collective, whether that's joining the union or just kind of learning more. So you can go to like our website and our social media outlets. It's usually Debt Collective. And we have some upcoming events. So one that'll be taking place on May 14th is about debt and disability. So there is like a link on the website to look more into that. But one of the main things that we're trying to share right now is that on May 22nd, we're going to Washington, D.C. To actually go and meet and say, like, we have been fighting for this for a very long time. You have been kind of dangling the carrot in front of our faces saying, oh, it's coming. Oh, it's not coming. Debt abolition, like we care about it, but not enough to do something. So we're going to go to Washington, D.C. as a group. And there's more information about that if you go to bit.ly/May 22nd DC. May is capitalized, and then DC is in all caps too. I could probably like give you the link as well, but we are just trying to actually go there to the Capitol to say enough is enough. President Biden, you could cancel all of it. Why are you delaying this anymore? And that, yeah, we just won't stand for our money being used in these ways. So that's one of the biggest things right now is we're having an upcoming Washington, D.C. action that we're really looking forward to.
Oh, that's good. And Rinda, do you have anything you'd like to share before we close out this segment of Live from the Heartland?
Well, just very quickly, why are we doing this at the Chicago Teachers Union, you might ask? They are in negotiations. I have no information about what their negotiations are involving in particular, but we always like to support unions when they're negotiating. I think that a lot of people in Chicago are ambivalent about CTU. One of the things about them that I am so impressed with is the extent to which they bargain, not for themselves, but for the schools, for the communities, for the kids, for counselors in schools, for librarians in schools, for smaller class sizes. Their bargaining is both, personal, and the debt that they carry is certainly a part of that, but also it's communal. And so we like to bring in as many members of the community as we can reach out to so that people in the community understand the priorities and the exigencies of the teachers' work.
I think it's great that we have a strong teachers union. We need to replicate that in many other areas of our lives. And, some people grumble because they think they're too powerful. And I'm sure that, nothing is smooth, but overall, it's been great for Chicago.
Yeah, we really are lucky.
So I hope everyone goes to see the films over at the CTU headquarters on Carroll Street, and that's May 16th. And I hope people look up information about the Debt Collective and follow it a little bit more. It's a new organization to me. I didn't know about it, and I'm really grateful that I do, because I think that a lot of people are mired in debt, and interest is a terrible killer.
Let me throw in one more thing about the film showings. They're all free, so nobody should have to worry at all about paying for admission. And we do offer pizzas and soda pop, and that's also free because we do them at dinner time. So this one is from 5:30 to 7:30 on the 16th.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming on Live from the Heartland, and I want to encourage all our listeners and viewers to stay tuned. We're going to take a musical break, and then we're going to come back. Stay tuned here on the left end of your dial, or however you're getting Live from the Heartland. Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of May 11th. I'm still Michael James. I'm still up here in the 49th Ward. And last week, I gave a little bit of a shout out to the Free Street Theater, which was putting on a play called Mothering the Movement over at Pulaski Park on Blackhawk, 1419 West Blackhawk. And just so happens that my granddaughter, Ida Rocket, was in the play as a member of the Free Street Theater's youth ensemble. And I went to the play along with my wife, Paige, and we had a really nice time seeing the play, seeing our granddaughter, and my daughter, Koya Paz, who happens to be very much involved with Free Street Theater. And I thought it would be good to get her to come on today to give a brief bit of information about mothering the movement and the person who is really key to the whole thing, Hazel Johnson of the People for Community Recovery. So, Koya, it's great to see you again.
Hi.
And I know you've been very busy with the academics at DePaul, and there's demonstrations going on over there. You got your plate full with the Free Street Theater. So tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about the particular play, Mothering the Movement, and Free Street Theater.
Yeah, so I'll start with Free Street so that people understand how Mothering the Movement fits in. So Free Street, we're in our 55th year. We were founded in 1969, and our work has changed a lot over the years, of course, because the city changes a lot over the years. But fundamentally, we're committed to thinking about how performance can be a tool in a larger strategy to challenge Chicago's racial and economic segregation and the sort of parcel of injustices and inequities that come with that segregation. I want to say, like at Free Street, we do not believe that theater itself is activism, which sometimes people really get mad about. But I think, as you and so many of your listeners know, activism is part of a strategy, right? It has a target, it has a goal. There's something measurable we're trying to accomplish. And so we like to think about how we can partner with environmental justice organizations, with racial justice organizations. We added environmental justice to our mission 2 years ago, formally, after making 6 plays in a row about environmental justice. And Mothering the Movement is the latest. And I love it so much, especially in this moment where I think a lot of people are feeling kind of a despair about what is happening in the world. We just seem to be in this crisis. I know many of my students and the young people I work with feel like their voices are not being listened to. That's why we're seeing encampments everywhere. This is why we're seeing this sort of like renewed outrage about like, is our government representing our people? And in this show, which is made by 14 to 19-year-olds, you have a bunch of young people looking at the work of Hazel Johnson, who is often was dubbed the mother of the environmental justice movement. She lived in a place called Altgeld Gardens and realized that people were disproportionately dying of cancer and other diseases that were the result of illegal industrial waste dumping. Which is really like a common problem on the south side of Chicago, but especially in what she dubbed the toxic donut. They were kind of surrounded by industrial waste. And so she was a huge activist in organizing against those things. The work continues with her daughter, Cheryl Johnson, and People for Community Recovery in Altgeld Gardens. And I just love seeing young people talking about how important it is to think about being a part of a movement. And they use mothering as this beautiful frame. They say, actually, your granddaughter says it, right? That mothering not as like a biological or gender construct, but mothering as this idea of like, you have to grow movements, right? That these have to be sustained. We have to think about how we're going to nurture people for the long haul. I think about how your collections are often, like photographs from the long haul, right? Like we're not in this for a one-time thing. We're in it for a lifetime. And so what does that look like? And it's just nice to see young people really like owning that and thinking about how they want to have an impact on the world.
Well, they seemed to have a really good time doing the play, and afterwards there was a lot of joy. How do you recruit the young kids that are involved? I'm sure that the way Ida got involved was through you, but there's a lot of other kids, and it's a really multinational, if that's still a correct word, or not sure anymore. But a lot of different people representing the kind of rainbow makeup of Chicago, and it was good to see them all together. How do you find these kids?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of show up, like we do recruit Free Street, about half of our work is with young people and half of our work is multi-generational with people in the communities. We have a space at Pulaski and we have a space in back of the yards. And, our commitment is really to show up in the communities we serve. And that includes like the environmental justice community, racial justice, organizing. And, I think a lot of people find out about us through that. They trust us through that. We also collaborate with schools. We do educational partnerships. I don't run the youth program. That's Katrina Dion, who's our current artistic director. But, I think, and usually when young people come, they stay. I think people find it a really like rejuvenating place. Our mutual relative, your granddaughter, my daughter, was actually really reluctant to join at first. I think because I work there and I do a lot of work there and she's kind of grown up around Free Street. I think there was a part of her that thought maybe she wanted a little bit of space. But like many young people in her generation, she's really passionate about environmental justice as like a hugely pressing issue for young people who are inheriting this world that has been kind of devastated ecologically. And so she decided, why not? I'll get involved. And now she loves it. She wants to stay.
Well, Koya, how would you in a sentence define environmental justice or injustice?
Well, I think that when we talk about environmental justice, we're talking about sort of creating communities that are equitably healthy. Right now, most industrial waste, dumping, pollution, factories, anything you can imagine that's creating sort of environmental harms to communities gets kind of shuttled to the south and west side, actively moved out of the north side to the south and west side where in parts of the South Side, people have a life expectancy that's 20 years lower than people on the North Side. And that's after you disaggregate gun violence. Because I think sometimes people think like, oh, well, there's more violence in those communities. But that actually, so you take those statistics out, people are still more likely to die of asthma, of pollutant-related diseases. 20 years is a huge thing. So environmental justice is really about trying to balance that, to remove these harmful industries from communities of color and think about like how can we have equitable distribution of waste and how can we build towards a world where we're not producing so much toxic waste.
Well, there's a lot of waste to remove. You have a permanent home on Blackhawk at Pulaski Park, but I know that you have an office now over on South Ashland, and I've seen Free Street Theater do plays in a number of settings, some in parks outside, etc. How about telling us about where you do your plays and how people can see Mothering the Movement while it's still running?
Yeah, so actually our space on Ashland in back of the yards is a performance space too. We do
Uh-huh.
performance there. We just did There's a Future, which is a show I directed about environmental organizing. We actually have a bus that will be taking people from our back of the yard space up to see Mothering the Movement on the 18th. If people can find out about that and all of the shows at freestreet.org, which is our website. But we really, we joke that we're theater for people who hate theater. Nothing about our work is super formal. We really try to be an invitation because we think that's our role as artists and storytellers is that we can help hold these stories and uplift them, but we can also create inviting spaces that make people want to learn more and get involved with the organizations that are doing the real work.
So what are the actual dates that people can see it? They can see it on Friday, May 11th, 7 to 8 p.m. at 4627 South Ashland. And is that the 10th or the 11th?
We are not doing a show at South Ashland anymore. So we were originally going to perform there, but as you see in the show, the set is this like really beautiful kind of S-curve picnic table, and we decided that's where we would bus people up.
I get it. So what nights can people go see the play, or what days?
Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays through May 18th, and maybe if enough people show up, we'll extend.
Oh, that would be great. Hopefully the masses who are listening will turn out.
The masses, and everything we do is free or pay what you can. We really do not want economic.
And you got a bunch of new swag. I know my wife Paige came home with a new hat.
Yeah.
One thing I was curious about, you just mentioned the set and the stage, which has people sitting around this S shape. I wondered if that was an S or a money sign.
An S, not a money sign.
And is
Yeah.
that just a way to fit everything into the room, or how did you come up with that shape of that stage?
I'll say that was the director and the scenic designer's decision. I wasn't a part of that decision, but my guess is that it creates the sense that we're all at a table together. It was a way to get as much of the audience as close as possible to create this feeling of community in this storytelling.
Well, Koya Paz, I'm going to throw one more thing at you because I know you teach at DePaul, and I know there's demonstrations going on over there. I get alerts when something's happening because I teach there. But why don't you give a 30-second report on what you know about the DePaul encampment?
I mean, like many universities across the country, students are saying, we do not believe in the death and destruction that's happening in Palestine. It doesn't seem like calling representatives or, other forms of protests have been working. So they're focusing like, people did around apartheid, we're going to focus on divestment, trying to get universities to pull out economically from this war. And that's what they're doing. I'm really proud of any young person who takes a stance that they really believe in. So it's nice to see people, they're out there in the rain in tents, I spoke to one student. I said, "What do you need?" And they said, "Well, we're cold and we're traumatized, so we need like a little bit of love." So if you are inclined to just send love to these student protesters across the country, I think they really need the encouragement.
Well, Koya Paz, it's great to see you again, twice in 1 week, one time up close, this time close, but it's on a Zoom.
Yeah.
And say hello to your daughter, my granddaughter, Ida Rocket, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And all you listeners and viewers, stay tuned here on the left end of your dial or however you're getting the show. And we'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland. I'm still Michael James up here in the 49th Ward. And speaking of the 49th Ward, we've got an opportunity now to talk to someone from our neighborhood who has moved to France. And we were in touch with each other recently, and we thought it'd be good to get a little bit of a European report focusing on France. And when we first started talking about this was around May Day. So we thought we'd do a little bit on May Day. Now it's a few weeks gone, or actually a week so far when we're recording, but we still have the one and only Michael O'Toole. Many of you may remember him from hanging around the Heartland Cafe, the No Exit Cafe, Flats and Sharp Music. And he's been over in France for a while. And I said, come on, Michael, give us a report. So hello there, Michael O'Toole.
Hello, Michael James. It's nice to be coming back home from here in the Charente-Maritime. So I'll just give you a little background on the part of France I'm in. So I live in the Charente-Maritime region of France, and it's one of about 12 départements, like states, that make up the Nouvelle-Aquitaine. So that's bordered by Spain to the south and the Atlantic Ocean on our west. And we live on the right bank of the Gironde estuary. And that's the biggest river estuary in Europe. And about 20 kilometers north of us, it flows into the Atlantic Ocean near a city called Royan. And we're in wine country, sunflower, wheat farming. It's a very rural area right where we are, very conservative area overall. And a lot of the grape harvest here goes to making cognac. And the city of Cognac is just about an hour drive, hour and 15-minute drive. Haven't made it to Cognac yet, but we plan to. It's also a very big vacation area from about May through September, and also a big retirement area. So what you end up with is a big mix of people. You've got the rural people that have always lived here, are often very conservative. And then you've got people who have moved from all over France. A lot of people from Belgium, from other parts of the world too, but largely French people that have retired down here. And there was a lot of house buying during COVID. A lot of people, moving to the country because now they could work, from home like we are right now on Zoom. So it's a kind of a diverse range of people in economically rural versus urban, A lot of different dialects are spoken here of French. Some are easy to understand, some aren't. And there's a wide range of political views as well.
Well, what happened on May Day over there? Did any of
Okay, so I'll tell you what happened
keep
on May
talking
Day.
about how it's a conservative area? Did we
Well,
have
it is.
any
It
May
is.
Day
Well, I'm
action?
not, and I'll tell you. I'll tell you what happened. So our plan on May Day, May 1st, was to go to the rally in the city of Royan, which is about 20 kilometers north of us. Unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate. We had heavy fog, and there were reports of some possible flooding along our route. So we said, and we had heard the day before that there would be some kind of a May Day gathering in our town, Barzan, Barzan. So knowing it's kind of a conservative little town, I didn't think we'd be singing the Internationale, but I also didn't think I'd be going to a garlic tasting. So we go to the town thing, and apparently, around the rest of France on May 1st, people hand out little bouquets of lilies of the valley, the muguet. Okay. Apparently, in the Charente-Maritime, we do things differently. We get together, we eat the green garlic. I think they call them ramps, and we eat the green garlic, and we have a little pâté and some camembert, and we chat with the neighbors, who are mostly, pretty. We're the young. I'm 67. I'm one of the young kids here in this town. So right. So anyway, so that was all great. And apparently there's a saying that if you have a sprig of garlic in the hand on May 1st, you'll have money all year. So it's a great little tradition, and the garlic was good. So by the time we finished the garlic and the pâté and everything, we got in the car, we go up to Royan, we go to the Place Charles de Gaulle. Nothing. It's like nothing had happened. And this was where the rally would have been. So I came back here to the house and started looking in the English language and French language press to find out what had happened in Bordeaux. Bordeaux is the biggest city near us. It's about 90 minutes south, and it's a good size. The urban region is a little over 1 million people, so it's got all the big city wonders and a lot of the big city problems as well. So this year, according to Sud-Ouest, which is a regional paper, attendance was really low compared to last year. The unions estimated about 4,000 people marched in Bordeaux, compared with 130,000 last year. And the police, of course, reduced that number from 4,000 to 1,800. Last year they said there were only 12,000 people, and you know how that works, right? The organizers have got one number, and then the powers of order, the forces of order, start squashing that number down. You're familiar with that. So it's hard to say really where that was. But the thing was, it really had dropped off this year, not just because of weather, but last year people were marching against the reform of the retirement system. And that was a very big issue last year. It made a lot of the press in the U.S. And eventually what happened was the government pushed it through under a constitutional maneuver called 49.3, which they have used before. And people were very unhappy about that. This year, the marching was mostly anti-capitalist, anti-austerity, anti-war. There were a number of pro-Palestinian groups. There were also a lot of people asking equal pay for women. That's still a big issue here that's not been resolved. And so the crowds were out. They did a nice march. They ended up, they marched through the center of Bordeaux. And it's very festive. It's a great festive thing. There's floats, there's music, there's people dancing, banging on things. A lot of these are, a lot of these are sponsored by the CGT, the CGT, which is the Confédération Générale du Travail, which had always been very closely associated with the Communist Party in France. And they run these, they mastermind these great rallies all over the country. Like I say, music, floats. There's a group of women called the Rosies, as in Rosie the Riveter, that do some very fun and very biting satirical dance routines and musical numbers. So they were there this year. And it was a great, it was a great event. And a lot of these will end up with a barbecue at the end of
Nice.
the day. So, uh, so in any case, there were about 265 marches around France, according to the CGT, and about 200,000 demonstrators total, 50,000 in Paris. There were some clashes. There were probably 25 arrests in Paris. And a lot of, people were, even though inflation has come down since a peak in 22 and 23, prices haven't come down and people are feeling very squeezed. So there was a lot of anti-austerity protesting, and people also asking, why is the government spending money on the Olympics when we're getting, we're getting screwed here. So,
Well, give us an Olympic report because
oh, that's it.
wait to watch them.
Oh, I can't wait either. And we get them all on free TV here, so it'll be good so long as the antenna's working. Well, what the Olympic report is, there's widespread reporting of possible labor disruptions. Workers in a lot of sectors have threatened to strike. Transportation and garbage workers in Paris have already filed to strike. A number of other people are talking about striking. Police union is even talking about chasing down and extinguishing the Olympic flame. And there's a lot of call for that. People want to, they're going to need some security around the race with the flame, which I think starts in Marseille. Not sure on that, but there's a lot of rhetoric out there. It's hard to say what'll happen before that. But in the meantime, the European parliamentary elections are coming up in June, and the far right, the Rassemblement National, which used to be the National Front here, it's now the RN. Is at 31% in voter intentions.
These are the bad guys.
Yeah, these are the bad guys.
Right.
Yeah, these are the guys we don't like so much. So Macron's party is only polling at 16%. The socialists are polling at 13%. And the rest is made up of parties on the right and left that are 7% or under. The communists are only polling at 3% right now. So the left is in a lot of trouble. It looks like there's going to be kind of a sweep Europe-wide, not a sweep of the entire parliament, but they're going to really increase their seats. The far right from Germany, Italy, France, everywhere. So that's something to really watch out for. Be happy to keep up on that.
Yeah, we'll check in with you again. Now let's bring it back to Chicago because one of the things that you and I have talked about over time is the union at the
Old Town School of Folk. Old Town School. Well, we're doing good. This month we're having a teaching artist celebration month, and we're inviting everyone to participate on the faculty, whether they're a union member or not. We're hoping to add some members. We've got a number of events going on. They're mostly limited to faculty. Admin is invited to these. The board is invited to these. There will be something Friday, May 10th, which I guess will be after. Well, this will be seen after that. There aren't some dates fixed for other things, but we're rolling along well. We're also happy to have, we've helped out some other people that have organized in Chicago. We were helping a bit with Second City, who has now got their contract in January. They are the what are they? Oh, yeah, they are the Association of International Comedy Educators, and they also went with the Illinois Federation of Teachers, like we did. I heard you talking about CTU
with an
before.
earlier guest, yeah.
Yeah, with an earlier guest. And so that's, which is IFT, is CTU is part of IFT, and it's also part of the American Federation of Teachers. So we're doing well. We're doing well. We're strong. We've got a good membership. We've got a lot going on. We're trying to really get people fired up about joining committees and getting more work done. We're all volunteers, all of us. It's funny trying to be the union secretary from 5,000 miles away, but
Mike, we're going to check in with you regularly because you give a great.
That would be nice.
You give a good report, and we're really glad to have you as our correspondent over there for Live from the Heartland in France. And I just want to say I want to thank everybody who made this show possible. Our guests, which would be Rinda West, Jackie Guataquira, Koya Paz, and Michael O'Toole, as well as our producers Katie Hogan, Tom Clark, and Lynn Orman, and our engineer Hal James. Everybody continue to do good in the world, because the good that you all do, that I do, that we all do together will make a difference. So onward, and all power to the people.